Well, hey there. You have stumbled into Sister Sharpens Sister.
Where three sisters get together each week and learn something new.
Oh man, I was representing. Now you can't see my shirt.
What is that?
Do you see it?
Yeah.
The Flatwoods Monster.
Oh,
We went there yesterday. For anybody listening, if you've never been to the Bigfoot Museum in Sutton, West Virginia, we highly recommend it. And then just around the corner is the museum for the Flatwoods Monster. Then head up the road a little bit to Flatwoods and go to the custard stand for lunch and excellent hot dogs. Oh, and they have tater tots. Okay, anyway, this is Sister Sharpens Sister. I'm Karen.
I'm Swan.
That's Dee Dee. And today we're talking about the 90s. Now, there are a lot of rabbit holes that you can go down into when you're talking about food in the 90s. I covered a little bit of lobbying, a little bit of the dietary guidelines, and then I got into some of the, it was like 42 items that made up a decade of food or something like that. But I don't have all 42 of them written down to talk about. But that's what I went into. And Shalon, you covered
GMOs.
Right. And Dee Dee, what did you have?
I basically just found some foods that were popular that people would have been eating in the 1990s, including a few home cooked meals. So that's what I did.
Do you want to start? You want to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I found 9 cereals from the 1990s, and all of these, according to the research I did, were actually invented in the 1990s. Okay, and they were popular as well. Number 1 on the list is Oreos. It was a cereal launched in 1998.
Yeah, I remember when that one came out. The kids were really excited for it.
And the second one was Reese's Puffs, launched in 1994. I've had that one. It's pretty good.
Reese's Puffs.
Yeah. The next one down is French Toast Crunch, which launched in 1995.
Okay.
Next one is Rice Krispie Treats, launched in 1993.
And that's a cereal. Rice Krispie Treats cereal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Rice Krispie
I don't
Treats
remember that
cereal.
one.
Yes. The next one down, which is number 5, is Waffle Crisps. It launched in 1996.
I don't know that one either.
The next one down, yeah, me neither. Next one down is Pop Tarts Crunch, launched in 1994.
Nope, don't know that one.
The next one down is Berry Kix, launched in 1992. I remember Kix cereal.
Yeah, and I remember when they put berries in it too.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then number 8 is Kellogg's Cinnamon Mini Buns, launched in 1991. And the next one down, which totally threw me, number 9 is Sprinkle Spangles, launched in 1993.
I'm sorry, say that one again.
There's Sprinkle Spangles.
Sprinkle Spangles.
Is this red, white, and blue?
There's a reason why we don't know. It was launched in 1993, discontinued in 1994.
Oh.
So it was made by General Mills, and although they never gave a reason as to why it was discontinued, but generally when that happens, it's because nobody's buying it.
It just sucked.
Basically, yeah. And the next I have are 23 foods that will make you nostalgic for the 1990s. And this comes from a website called yardbarker.com. When we came on and started recording, I was like, just before we started recording, I was like, oh, I should have looked up when these were actually invented, because some of them on there were not invented in the 1990s. But I didn't finish the list on when they were invented.
But they were popular in the 1990s.
Yes, they were popular in the 90s. It does not mean they were invented then.
Okay.
Number 1, bagel bites. I remember those. Karen will remember this one. We were kids. Big League Chew.
Yes. Yes. Do you remember that one?
I do. Yes.
Yeah, the chewing gum that was like chewing tobacco.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
a Boca burger?
It's a veggie burger.
It's a meatless burger. Yeah, it's a veggie burger.
Yeah.
It's a meatless burger. It was invented, that one I looked up. It was invented in 1979 because the meatless burger has been around for quite a few years, but they come and go and they come and go and they come and go. But the Boca burger has lasted from 1979 until now. It's been on the market the whole time.
I like the veggie burgers that are in the green package.
The Guardian.
Is that what it is? I thought it was like Morning Star or something.
Oh, maybe, yeah, Morningstar.
Like their bean burger is excellent. The spicy bean.
I like the spicy one. I like the spicy one.
Yeah.
I don't do spice.
Yeah. Number 4 is bubble tape.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Bubble
1988 when it was invented.
Oh,
Came
I know
in a
what you mean.
roll and you pull it out.
It's like 100 foot long or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids really loved that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next one down is Chef Boyardee.
Huh?
Was really popular in the 1990s. It was invented in 1928, and it's been around since then. It's still in the shelves now.
Yeah. I remember
all kinds
eating
of
their
stuff.
ravioli a lot.
We
Yeah.
just lost them.
Oh, I loved their ravioli.
Mm-hmm.
I can't eat it now because to me the flavor has changed,
Yeah.
and the ravioli when I try to eat it, it actually tastes like vomit.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think we're going to find
I don't
that
buy it.
food has changed and everything. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
well,
think that the food is
the
changed.
next one down is
Yeah.
Doritos 3D.
Oh,
Is that the puffy ones?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the version of Doritos.
Mm-hmm.
Dunkaroos.
Oh, yeah.
Dunkaroos. Is that the where you dipped it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like icing and a little cookie.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Cookie and icing. Yeah. The next one down was popular but not invented in the 1990s. This is Kellogg's Eggo waffles, invented in 1953. And the phrase for Lego my Eggo came in 1971. But that phrase was used quite often, especially in the television commercials in the 1990s.
Hey, Lego my Eggo.
Yes. Yeah. And I mentioned that last episode. I said, I feel like in the 90s, everybody had this marketing boost and all these foods just came back.
Yep.
Yep. Number 9 is Freeze Pops that were invented in 1963, and this is not to be confused with the popsicle. The popsicle was accidentally invented in 1905 by 11-year-old Frank Emerson. This is a Freeze Pops. It's in the long plastic sleeve.
Yeah.
Fruit by the foot, 3 foot long.
Yeah.
Do you eat a lot
I
of
did
that?
find a little bit.
A lot of it, no. But I did
Every
eat
once in a
some.
while?
Yeah.
It was 3 feet long when it was unrolled. The fruit name, it doesn't mean healthy, but according to yardbarker.com, the snack no longer contains artificial dyes or flavors.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
I know
So,
it was
still doesn't
really-
mean it's healthy for you, but still.
Yeah. When the kids were
Yeah.
playing soccer, that was a really popular snack to take when it was your turn to be the parent that brought snacks after the game.
Yeah.
You would get the little
Yeah.
jugs of Kool-Aid, right?
Okay. Yeah, like the barrel thing.
The barrels.
Barrels.
Yeah, you remember those?
Yes.
And then I would get like the individual bags of some kind of a chip. Usually I would buy the bag that had a bunch of different kinds in it,
Mhm.
and then get fruit by the foot and fruit gushers.
Go-Gurt
Yep.
was introduced to America in 1998. Gushers came about in 1991. So, Hot Pockets.
Oh, man.
Hot Pocket.
No, I ate a lot of Hot Pocket.
Kid Cuisine, which is a TV dinner designed specifically for kids,
I
with
remember.
options like pizza, hamburger, and chicken nuggets.
Mhm.
Yes, I remember mother seeing the commercial for that and us going to Publix the next time we went to the store and she got me some to try.
Did you like them?
I did. I felt so important.
Oh, because you had your very own TV.
Well, yeah, I mean and that's why they did it. I mean, because the ones that the grown-ups were eating were not like
Yeah, it
kids,
would have like a apple crisp or brownie or
Brownie.
something. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, the next one is Lunchables.
Yep.
Yeah.
We all know Lunchables.
Mhm.
They debuted in 1989, but they didn't start offering options like pizzas until the mid 90s. Molten chocolate cake, which is a chocolate sponge cake filled with liquid chocolate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, they call them
Pizza
lava
rolls.
cakes up here.
Yeah, well, it's called molten chocolate cakes or lava cakes, either one. And there's controversy about who, where, and when it was first invented. I'm not even going to get into that. That's not what we're talking about.
If you order the ones from Domino's, just know that they are rich.
Okay.
Woo!
Okay. The next one I have here is pizza rolls.
Oh,
It's-
yeah.
They were
like
invented in
Tostino's, pizza rolls. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
Casino
like it
they
too.
were invented in 68, but didn't really kick off until several rebrandings, with Totino's pizza rolls winning first place for that in the 1990s. Pop Rocks and Fun Dip
Man,
came back in the 1990s.
Pop Rocks was so fun.
Hmm. And Fun Dip, which has a lick stick.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, Ring Pops, which were invented in 79, rose to popular in the 1980s, but hung around through the 1990s. So those were real popular in the 90s.
Yep, I remember those.
Yep.
We kind of joked about that before when we were talking about earlier about those are going to match the candy necklace and stuff.
Yeah.
Hmm. And stuffed crust pizza, Pizza Hut came up with in 1995.
Yes.
I remember that.
Hmm. Toaster pastries like Kellogg's Pop Tarts and Pillsbury Toastal Strudels had a rivalry that heated up in the 1990s.
The Pop-Tarts are better, in my opinion.
Oh, I like the strudels.
No.
I
Yeah,
don't
because you
eat
get the
one, so I
icing,
don't know.
you get the little icing and put over it after. Yeah.
Mhm.
Pop Tarts are good though. Pop Tarts are good. Yeah, my dog is acting up again this week.
Oh, he wants to be part of the show. Hey, buddy, we need to talk about dog food, healthy dog food and non-healthy dog food.
Hey,
That would be
write it down.
My last one is white chocolate.
white chocolate. Oh my goodness, which is not chocolate at all.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't care for white chocolate.
Same.
Hershey's Cookies and Cream came about because of the white chocolate.
Yeah.
Now, there is a National White Chocolate Day, which is celebrated every September 22nd.
I didn't know that. Is there
I
a
didn't either.
national milk chocolate day or dark chocolate day
Probably.
I have no idea. We'll
or
have to
just a
find out, I guess.
chocolate day?
Also, in the 1990s, Caesar salad was pretty popular, but that's kind of been popular for many years. Popular home cooked meals in the 1990s, American food culture was influenced by global flavors and dishes like the Caesar salad, the molten chocolate cake, or the lava cake, tuna tartare. And tuna tartare is a dish that's made from raw sushi grade tuna, diced small and combined with lemon juice. It became popular in the 1990s. Here are some other home cooked meals from the 1990s. Might be pizza. People started doing home cooked pizzas in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Oh, just as a side note, in case anybody wants to make a cheap pizza at home, you buy the like flour tortilla, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you put a little pizza sauce on it or spaghetti sauce, whatever your preference is. Top it with some cheese and pepperoni or veggies, whatever. And there you go. You stick it in the oven at 425 for about 10 minutes or until the edges start to turn brown or the cheese is melted, however you like it. Slice it up and eat it. And it's really good.
Beef stroganoff was popular in the 1990s.
Yeah, I used to know how to make that.
I don't know how to make it. I don't even know that I've actually even had it before.
That's really good.
Yeah, it is good. I made it one time and didn't realize that's what I was making. Because it didn't say beef stroganoff. I forget what it said, but you remember. we weren't married for very long.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, let me try this recipe I saw on Food Network because I watch Food Network all the time. And it ended up being beef stroganoff. And I was like, oh. It's gravy.
Maybe I've had it then, but I didn't know what it was. So I may have had it.
Yeah, with noodles, right?
Yeah, with the egg noodles.
Yeah.
Good.
Other popular foods would include the fish sticks, chop suey, curried sausage, jacket potatoes, and chicken stroganoff.
What?
What's a jacket potato?
I did not look that up. I don't know. I should have looked that up, but I did not. Looking at the picture, it just basically looked like a baked potato with like some butter and spices in it. So anyway, I'm going to call it just a baked potato with spices and stuff in it.
Works for
So
me.
that's my personal take on what that picture showed. Um, Now I looked at party foods, and I'm like, I didn't party much in the '90s because I had no idea what most of these were.
See if I
Party
didn't
foods:
either, but let's see if I remember them like from being mentioned in school.
pizza shapes party dip.
Okay, never mind.
It's basically just a pizza dip made with like pizza stuff with like cheese and pepperoni and stuff like that.
Oh,
Honey
Okay.
Joys,
what?
Honey Joy.
Honey Joys, Honey Joys. That's cornflakes with honey. And I've got some recipes for some of these. If anybody, I'll share them with Karen.
Okay.
Okay, corn dogs. I know what those are. And French onion dip cheese log.
Yeah.
You know
Were there
that one?
I remember mini corn dogs being
Yeah.
popular. Was that in the
It
90s?
doesn't say, it just says corn dogs, but if it's a party thing, it probably is the mini.
Yeah.
Oh, and I have a little bit of information here about the history of the Caesar salad.
Okay.
It looks like that an Italian immigrant, Caesar Cardini, is said to have invented the dish on July 4, 1924, at his restaurant, Caesar's Place in Tijuana, Mexico. And he did that because of a lot of Californians came over, probably celebrating the 4th of July. And they had crossed the border to escape prohibition. And he had to feed all of them, so he came up with the Caesar salad.
Huh.
Salad that doesn't actually have a whole lot of stuff in it, so it would be cheap to make for a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, be fast, easy, and cheap. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. I like Caesar salad.
I do too.
A lot of people don't realize that there's anchovies in that dressing.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all I've got. That's all I did. And
Well, let's get into a little bit of the lobbying.
okay,
And this information I took from a time.com article from 2015. And the title of the article is Experts Say Lobbying Skewed U.S. Dietary Guidelines. And the guidelines are, and I'm quoting, grounded in the most current scientific evidence, unquote, and are meant to help people make healthy food and beverage choices according to the government agencies that produced the guidelines. And we went over that before in the last episode, talking about dietary guidelines. But the article goes on to say that a number of leading nutrition experts, including some of the ones that were tasked to serve on the team that was coming up with the guidelines, said that they were influenced too much by food manufacturers, producers, and special interest groups. And as a result, many of the experts say that some of the government's diet advice continues to promote out-of-date research from years past. And I think that's still evident today. I mean, that was almost 10 years ago they were talking about that.
mm-hmm.
Now, the guidelines are issued by the USDA and the Health and Human Services, and they are based on, well, in part from the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, which we also talked about last week. And that committee is made up of experts in the fields of health and nutrition. The advisory committee bases its recommendations on thousands of pages of published research, and their report is open to the public and open for public comment. If you go to dietaryguidelines.gov, you can download the 2020 to 2025 edition of the U.S. Dietary Guidelines. And you will also find links to how you can attend virtual meetings and provide comments through a process, and a link to find out more about the 5-step process that they use to come up with the guidelines, as well as some information on the people who actually served on the team.
Wow.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was like, wow, I never knew that.
No idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
we learn something every time we have an episode.
We do.
That's right.
And if you're a parent, I think knowing what the U.S. dietary guidelines are is pretty important if your child eats school breakfast or school lunch,
Yes.
because you're going to be more informed about the types of foods that are going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, new guidelines went into effect on July the 1st of 2024, just like last month. But those changes are going to be phased through a number of years that will allow these schools and the students to get used to the changes that are coming about. And I remember when the dietary guidelines changed when my kids were in school, they absolutely hated the changes that went into effect when Michelle Obama did her school nutrition thing. But I remember when they went into effect that my youngest son and my youngest daughter came home from school one day famished. And we were paying for them to have breakfast and lunch at school, right? They were starving. And my youngest son, who at the time was probably 5'10", right at 200 pounds, they gave him one roll, one small slice of a hamburger patty, just one piece of a hamburger patty, one spoonful of mashed potatoes, and they gave him, it was either green beans or apples or something like that, but whatever it was, he didn't eat it. And he said, that's all they were giving. Now, he wasn't in sports, okay? But even the kids that were on the high school football team, those boys whose coaches tell them to eat like 4,000 calories a day so that they could keep their muscle and their strength, were getting the same amount of food as a kid that was not in the sports programs.
See, this is important to talk about too, because different people need different things for their bodies, depending on their body and depending on their activity levels and things like that. I do believe it's important to teach people about portion control and making sure that you get enough fresh fruits and vegetables. I believe in teaching that. However, when you have someone who is highly active, they need more calories than someone who's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is also why in that, like the MREs and stuff they give to our soldiers, they have a lot of calories in.
Yeah, they do.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah. My youngest son says too that if you eat an MRE, chew the gum that comes with it. And there's a reason for that. Do you know the reason?
It makes it produces saliva so you can actually chew it and digest it.
No, you chew the gum afterwards because it's got a laxative in it. Because if you eat the MRE and you don't chew the gum, you will get constipated.
Okay.
It is that rich.
Wow.
Yeah.
My husband has talked to me about the MREs. He said he didn't like it.
Yeah.
He said they gave you energy and sustenance that you needed. He said, but it wasn't good. So,
Okay.
he was in the military a long time before your son was. So
yeah,
I'm sure there have been changes over the years.
Well, he said they weren't. He said they weren't too bad though when he had them. So.
And that's what I've heard. But my husband was in the military in the late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a difference, just a little bit though. Yeah. Now, what were you saying?
I was going to say, so I went to school in the '90s, graduated in '99. So all through what I ate in like elementary school, I remember having foods like spaghetti and shepherd's pie and they were made at the school. They were yeast rolls. We had a little salad bar in the elementary school that I went to in Florida. And then in middle school,
she went to a bougie school, Dee Dee.
Not really. I mean, it's Nokomis, Florida. It's not bougie at all.
No, it's not
bougie compared to Model Elementary.
And then in
all the rednecks live in Nokomis.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this is true. In middle school, we had that same kind of lunch where, you'd have like burgers or pizza. You would have like a Salisbury steak type of situation and then
With gravy.
right. And there would always be a vegetable and a fruit, and you could get a juice and a milk. But now the middle school that I went to, which was brand new,
Oh, that's right.
order in Domino's pizza.
Oh, wow.
And I would eat Domino's pizza for lunch. Like a lot of like most of the days.
Now,
And we
go.
and we had slushies. We could buy slushies.
Wow.
Now the pizza and the slushies cost more, but if you had the money,
Right, yeah.
you ate it. In high school, we had the same type of thing where we had this a la carte lunch. We could pick what we wanted, and there were many lunches where all I ate was French fries.
Really?
Yes.
You know what? You know what this also is? Oh, sorry.
Sorry. We also had vending machines in high school.
Oh, yeah. No, we had vending machines.
So for breakfast, I would go in and get a Powerade and those chocolate covered cake donuts.
Yes. Come in the little pack. There's like 5 or 6 of them in a pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what
I think there's a difference here because part of it is a cultural difference between West Virginia and Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
People may not realize that there's a cultural difference, but there is.
Yeah, yeah, big time.
Huge.
You know,
Yes.
one of the
So
things, one of my favorite meals when I was in elementary school was cowboy hats. Do you remember cowboy hats? It was a piece of fried bologna with a scoop of mashed potatoes on top of it.
Yeah.
Never had bologna for lunch at school.
Could you imagine if somebody suggested fried bologna in a school today?
Yeah, they would flip out.
There was a time when I got into high school in my junior year that I actually, that was the first year I went on a diet. And I counted my calories and I packed my own lunch. And, I 23 pretzel sticks as a serving.
Count them out loud.
I'd count them out. And something that I used to eat as a dessert was the Snackwell's Devil Food Cake cookies. I don't think we've mentioned Snackwell's. That was a 90s thing. Right?
It's on my list.
I'm sorry.
It's not. It wasn't on mine. It didn't come up on mine.
That's okay.
There's
I got it. I got you.
You got it.
So
Another difference between West Virginia and Florida is that at least in Sarasota County, there's a lot of money.
yes.
So your schools are probably going to be having more money to spend on the food.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps.
Plus population. You got way more people there. So.
Yeah. And the difference between when Shalon went to school and when my kids were in school, like in my youngest was born in 97. So they were going to school in the early 2000s. And when Obama changed everything with the school nutrition program, what they did is that nothing was made at the school anymore. Everything came from a government packaged food. Nothing is homemade at the school anymore.
Yeah.
Like they don't make the rolls, they come in frozen. They don't make the mashed potatoes from real potatoes. They come in a powder and they mix it up and yeah. And to me, that's the difference that my kids noticed is what was made by hand at the school by the cooks and what came out of a box. Now, my husband has a master's degree in nutrition. He's a dietitian. He is registered and licensed by the state and currently practices as a diabetes educator. He's going to come on in a week or two, and we're going to talk to him about some of the food additives that we have here in America that are not allowed in other countries. But getting back to the school situation, he was actually called in by the Board of Education to address the cooks into how they could change that food just a little bit to make it more palatable for the kids because nobody was eating it. Nobody was eating it.
Wow.
It was like a 1980s MRE.
And to my knowledge, that hasn't changed. Now, I don't have kids now. But
I do.
what do you
The
know? The school that they went to in Florida is
Florida.
different.
I
Yeah.
know. We'll see
Okay.
what happens when they start school up here. We'll see how it
Yeah.
goes. But the schools in Florida, the food was actually not bad, in my opinion. You know, they have, again, normal, to me, normal stuff where one day it was like chicken, the next day
Right,
it'd be
yeah.
pizza or a burger.
Mm-hmm.
I know I got to experience a Thanksgiving meal at my youngest daughter's school, and that food was good. I
Yeah,
sat and
it's like
ate
a
it.
turkey and a dressing. Yeah.
And the mashed potatoes were tasty. It didn't seem to me like everything was so prepackaged.
Yeah.
But again, Sarasota County, Florida is a little different.
Right. Now, my youngest graduated in 2016, so that's been almost 10 years ago. So, I mean, things could have changed. So, hopefully, I've got my fingers crossed for your girls that they'll have some good food.
Just be packing lunch.
Yeah. Yeah, but you got to be careful what you send to school nowadays. You can't send peanuts or peanut butter because somebody might be allergic.
We ran into that only if there was a person within their classroom that was allergic.
Ah, okay.
But if there wasn't anybody in their classroom that was allergic, then the girls could have peanut butter if they wanted.
Dee Dee.
Okay. Pay attention to your dog.
Yeah, I'm gonna let him go potty.
Okay.
So we'll be back in a minute, and I'll
Okay.
pick back up with the where I left off the house.
Okay.
But I bought it anyway because it was Hobby Lobby, and
You got to get the
you got to
sales.
get it. Well, you got to get it when it's there because they
Yeah.
might not have another one.
It's true.
And we're back from our forced little bit of hiatus there. All right. And we'll jump right on into this decade of food. Now, this is just some things that happened during the 90s concerning food. Some of them you might remember, and some of them you might not. Now, in 1990, there was a huge boycott of tuna going on. You remember this, Dee Dee?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because
Because
of the mercury?
No, because fishermen were purposefully surrounding dolphins and letting them drown in nets so that they could get the tuna. So the Dolphin Protection Consumer Act came about. So many people were boycotting tuna that they couldn't sell it. So now if they harm any dolphins, then hey, that's money out of your pocket. Now in 1991, this is where Gushers come about. It's a Betty Crocker product. Fruit Gushers to my kids. You mentioned the bagel bites, but in 1991, salsa outsold ketchup by $40 million.
What?
Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Now that signals a change not only in your consumer demographics, but also in the different culinary tastes that were coming about in the 90s. And as Delina mentioned, flavors from all around the world started popping up.
Mm-hmm.
Also in 1991, the Honey Crisp apple was released to the public. From Minnesota. Minnesota, don't you know? They call it the Minnesota State Fruit, and it helped to save a declining apple growing industry. But they took different kinds of fruit and combined them and come up with this Honey Crisp apple. And it's very popular. It's one of my favorites. A Honey Crisp is.
Yeah. Apples were not genetically modified DNA wise until the 2000s.
Okay. Now in 1992, we have Arizona iced tea.
Oh.
Snackwells.
Yeah.
Which was a low-fat or fat-free cookies and snacks, and that was from Nabisco.
That was a big thing in the 90s, was the fat-free diet.
Fat-free everything. Yeah. And also in 1992, clear soda. Do you remember Crystal Pepsi?
I do actually.
I had forgotten about it, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think they called it, let's see, Tab Clear was the Coke version. 1993, Supersize. Now, Supersize started in the mid 80s, but it never caught on. McDonald's is the one that started it. It never really caught on until they joined up with a Paramount blockbuster film, Jurassic Park. And they dino-sized your meals. And then it stuck around as Supersize because that's what people were calling it, was Supersize. And then it was eventually phased out in 2004 because people were becoming more health conscious and because of Morgan Spurlock's documentary that he did, Supersize Me. In 1993, the Cooking Channel rebrands itself as the Food Network. In 1994, the North American Free Trade Agreement was established between Canada, United States, and Mexico. It boosted agricultural trade in things like beef, poultry, rice, peanuts, and fruits and vegetables. And it also reshaped diets, especially here in America, because we started eating more foreign fruits and vegetables. And in Mexico, they got introduced to highly processed, can you guess what? High fructose corn syrup.
Oh. I said soda.
1990.
We got the avocado.
Yeah, we got the
right?
avocado.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Avocados from Mexico.
I think we got the better end of that deal.
Yeah, I think so too. 1994, mad cow disease.
Oh, I remember that.
Oh, I remember that.
You remember? Bovine spongiform encephalopathy.
Yep. This was in the UK, right?
Yes.
Yes.
The first documented case in 1986 was in British cattle. And it led to a decade of bans and precautionary measures that was related to cattle husbandry and cattle trade. Now, in 1994, scientists confirmed that consuming tainted beef can cause a fatal disorder in humans. And I will link a webpage that talks about that. But as a result of that, anyone who was born or living in Europe between 1980 and 1997, which was the height of the mad cow disease, was barred from donating blood within the United States until the FDA lifted that ban in 2020. It lasted that long.
I remember me and Dean's mother quit eating red meat because of that.
Really?
Yeah, we completely stopped eating red meat because of that.
Yep.
Okay.
Went on a diet of poultry and seafood, and that was it.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. Do you ever watch the Meat Dad on Instagram? I love that guy. I will link him to you. He talks about going in and buying certain cuts of meat, taking it home, and then recutting it so that you have different types of steak and you have different type of roast, all out of one thing that they're selling you at the grocery store.
And you save money that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my husband and I have actually talked about going to some of the cattle farmers around here to see if we could buy a cow from them.
I want to buy like half a cow.
Yep.
We haven't done that, but we've talked about it. So
now we've done that before. Arnie and I, we've done that before. One of his friends, when he was working at the hospital, one of his friends' dad raises cattle over in Summers County. And we bought half a beef and half a hog.
Okay.
And it lasted for a long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah, and I remember when we were kids and we had the pigs, and the meat we got from that was so much more yummy than it was when you got from the store.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
By far. Now in 1995, getting back to our decade of food, computers within the home were becoming ever more popular. So people started looking things up online about their food, like how to make it, certain recipes, what's in it. So that is when a site called Epicurious launched. And that one's still a pretty popular site where you can go to and you can find recipes and blogs about, different things that are going on in the food industry. In 1997, allrecipes.com launched. And I use that one a lot.
Yeah.
I like that one. Yeah.
And others soon followed, and food bloggers exploded.
Mhm.
In the mid 90s, Martha Stewart came onto the scene. She had several cookbooks through the 80s that were pretty popular. But in the mid 90s, she had a self-titled magazine. It's called Martha Stewart Magazine. She had a TV show in 1993, and she's had several more successful shows and appearances and cookbooks. And now what most people relate her with is not her little episode where she was a guest of a federal prison here in the state of West Virginia, but the fact that she has become really good friends with Snoop Dogg.
Mm-hmm.
Just an unlikely pairing.
It is. But to hear each of them talk, they've been interviewed, that they're really good friends. She taught him how to cook.
Yeah, I've heard some. Yeah.
Yeah. She taught him how to cook, and he taught her about, I guess, just normal everyday life. Because he was a poor kid from the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So
yeah,
taught her about normal people.
He taught her how the other half lived, but not the other half we're used to talking about. We're talking about the other half.
The other half. Yeah. Now in 1994, we have the Forrest Gump thing going on. I think that movie came out in 93, right?
I think so, yeah.
I've still never seen it. I just the look she gave me.
My daughter has,
Yeah, I know. It's a good film. I would recommend it.
I know quotes from the movie. I know scenes from the movie, but I have never watched the movie.
It's a good film.
But
Good film.
In 1996, a restaurant opened up in Monterey, California, in partnership with Paramount Pictures, called Bubba Gump Shrimp Company.
Mm-hmm.
And they have franchised, and they now have frozen packaged seafood products in stores. In 1996, Dee Dee, you're going to remember this because I remember we had a conversation about this one time. In 1996, there was a fat substitute came out known as Olestra or Olean.
Olean.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this.
In lab studies, it was shown to lower cholesterol, make your triglycerides good and everything, but it had some very uncomfortable side effects because it gave you gas, bloating, and diarrhea.
Yeah, don't eat the whole bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, what was it? Lay's potato chips?
Yeah.
It was Lay's potato chips. Yeah.
Oh.
But by the year 2000, people were like, no, we're done with that.
I guess that's a way to teach portion control.
I reckon. But it was so bad that the FDA said, listen, if you're going to fix potato chips or any kind of a snack food using this product, you have to label it so people know what they're getting. It's like, don't eat the whole bag of sugar-free gummy bears.
Oh, I learned the hard way on that too. First time I'd ever had it.
You know what they stopped making?
And I didn't grow up with anything like that.
You know what they stopped making? They stopped making sugar-free gummy bears.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Once
I had that episode, I never ate another one.
Well, it's the same thing with any kind of sugar-free candy. You can go to where like the Russell Stover is in the grocery store in Walmart, and you can buy sugar-free Russell Stover chocolates, right? Don't eat the whole bag of those either.
Oh,
it's easily done.
Eat those. I got away from any of that stuff.
Listen, pay attention to the serving size. In 1997, I think Delina mentioned that Go-Gurt came about. It was a really big thing.
I mentioned Go-Gurt. I don't know if I said the year, but yeah, I mentioned Go-Gurt.
Yeah, Go-Gurt was in 1997. And one of the things that my kids used to like to do is that it comes in a tube, right? Go-Gurt does. It comes in a tube and you stick it in the freezer.
Freeze it. Yeah.
Stick it in the freezer, throw it in the lunchbox the next day, and you've got a nice, cool snack the next day at school. Excuse me, or work or wherever you're going. Now, in 1995, California led the way with making restaurants and workplaces non-smoking. And they took it a step further in 1998 when they extended it to bars.
That serve food.
Bars, period, in California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember once when I was living in Florida and the family made a trip up to West Virginia. And we walked into a grocery store in Wyoming County and people were in there walking around smoking.
Okay.
And I was like, oh. And that's when I realized the true culture difference between between the two states. And yes, that was years ago. That was probably late 80s, early 90s or something like that.
When Tim and I were dating, and this was early 2000s, because this was like one of our first trips that I brought him up here to meet everybody.
Right.
And we were in Virginia and we walked into a Cracker Barrel for lunch. And the lady was like, smoking and non-smoking. And I went, and it was like, none. Like, wait a second. You can't smoke in a restaurant.
Yeah. Well, you can't anymore either. So now in 1999, the first certified organic restaurant was born in Washington, D.C. I forgot to write down the person's name that did it, but it was a lady that noticed that there were no regulations for what could be organic and what couldn't be. So she helped legislature come up with the guidelines for organic and non-organic. And after she established her restaurant and helped them with that, she later went on to become the editor for Gourmet magazine.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too.
Awesome. Yeah, there's some organic farms around here that I drive by going to and from work, and they have signs out that say no spraying, organic farm.
Yeah. Now going to see my daughter in Kentucky, run across the same thing.
I don't know if it's still the case, but it used to be, in order for a farm to be considered organic, they had to let their land rest for guess how many years?
7
years.
Yeah,
that is biblical.
That is biblical.
Yep,
absolutely. And in 1999, Blogger.
Oh yeah.
It is a web-based blogging software platform where anybody can go on there. But in 1999, it birthed 1 million food blogs.
Holy
wow.
Right? The 1 millionth food blog, 1999.
Wow.
Craziness, the things that happen. And things that you don't even really think about. Like I read food blogs every once in a while, especially if I'm going to go look up a recipe for something, right? And you get
I never read the blog. I just go down to the recipe.
Jump to recipe, right? Jump to recipe.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, if you read the blog, you learn about how they've changed their recipe from the original.
Okay.
So like if it's a recipe that somebody's family brought over from Germany, and then that's how they changed it. And I find stuff like that interesting.
Okay. I could care less.
Yeah, what if I'm going on to find a recipe, just give me the recipe.
As long as it tastes good, that's great.
Right. All right. So that leaves Shalon.
Sorry.
Shalon's going to close us out with what she has.
Oh, mercy. All right. So GMOs, genetic modification. I went to an FDA.gov website, which Karen has the link. And they start off, I want to lay this out delicately because GMOs are a heated topic conversation nowadays. But honestly, up until about 10 years ago, I had no idea I was even eating genetically modified things. But they start off by saying, we have been genetically modifying things for a long, long, long time. And that they're talking about the traditional way. You know, you have one tomato plant that makes really big tomatoes, but you have another one that makes a sweeter tomato. So you put them next to each other and hope they crossbreed, and then you have a better tasting tomato.
Right. Yeah. That cross-pollination thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have already mentioned that the first actual getting into the DNA of something and genetic modification happened in the 70s. I also found in the 1940s, plant breeders were using radiation and chemicals to randomly change DNA of plants.
Did you say radiation?
I did. And
where's the Incredible Hulk?
That's what I'm wanting to know.
Where's he at?
Why does my skin not turn green, for crying out loud?
In 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick identified the structure of DNA.
Say again? What year?
1953.
Oh, 50. I'm sorry. I heard 83 and I'm like, no, wait a minute. Okay.
I have 3.
Okay.
All right. And then in 1973, we have the biochemists Herbert Boyer and Stanley Cohen, who developed genetic engineering by inserting DNA from one bacteria into another.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now, you had asked me if I could go back in time and stop the research, would I?
Right. Yeah. When was that? I asked that like 3 or 4 episodes ago.
2 episodes, maybe?
Yeah.
I will just say that, I mean, you're playing with God's design of things, but with something that can bring great good, because there is great good that can come out of this, there's also great evil that I think that can happen.
Yeah.
Which is part of the conversation that is so heated nowadays and why people are so up in arms about genetically modified foods.
Right.
And making sure, you know, you got to label it that way. You have to tell me if you've genetically modified this, so I know and I can make an informed decision.
Right. Yeah. Well, we talked about.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And that goes into the informed consent thing that we were talking about. Was that last week or the week before? Yeah.
One of the weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was last week. It was in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. So a great thing that came from genetic modification, it was actually the first thing to be FDA approved in 1982, was insulin.
Yep. That's what yeah.
So this is a great thing because insulin before then was either bovine or swine, and it just didn't translate in the body as well.
Right. You know, I had wondered if somebody was Jewish or Muslim, and the only thing they had available to them was the pork insulin.
Would they die?
Would they die?
I don't know.
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when I was first diagnosed, that's all that was available for me.
Yeah.
Beef or pork.
Yes. Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, the doctors prescribed pork for me to take.
That's what I remember. I remember one time they tried to switch you.
And it didn't work for me.
And no, her blood sugars went like everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and then also, okay, so that was the very first thing that happened that was genetically modified that I think is a great thing.
Right. Now they did not genetically modify the pork or the beef. What they genetically modified was something called a human recombinant DNA, insulin.
The name of the insulin that came out and that was FDA approved after only 5 months of review in 1982 was Humulin. Then jump a little bit to the 90s. In 1996, you see Humalog.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So more into upcoming genetic modification, since we didn't really talk about it that much last week. I wanted to touch a few things that did happen in the 80s, which was the insulin. We also see in 1983, the first genetic modified crop was tobacco in China.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy? All right. It was engineered to be resistant to herbicides. And I went down many rabbit holes in my research. But in order for it to be resistant to herbicides, which if you don't know what a herbicide is, it's going to kill all the unwanted plants around it. So they don't have to be so careful when they're spraying. They can just go right over the tobacco plant and it's going to kill everything but the tobacco plant. They had to make it antibiotic resistant, which is strange to me. I'm like, why does it need to be antibiotic resistant? But in order for it to do that, in order for it to survive the herbicide, it has to be antibiotic resistant. And they add something called agrobacterium, which is a tumor causing gene in plants. I did not even know plants could get tumors.
What?
But evidently they can.
Holy cow.
All right. Let's just do a quick overview of the genetic modified foods that came into consumption in the United States in the 90s. The first GMO crop for human consumption and sale in 1994 was the Flavor Saver tomato, which had a longer shelf life because it would ripen but take a longer time to actually soften.
Okay.
So it could be, transported longer distances. And it was fungal resistant. So it had a gene in it that would keep it from rotting. Okay.
When she said that, I asked her if they had it for humans. I mean, maybe that's what the Rolling Stones have been using. Who knows?
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
What I thought was interesting is that the enzyme had an enzyme in it to keep it from rotting, but then the second gene that they added, and this is just, I'm reading verbatim from what the website said, which we will include in the show notes, is it's a gene responsible for the creation of APH3, which confers resistance to certain aminoglycoside antibiotics. Now, these antibiotics are going to be familiar to you.
Oh, no.
An aminoglycoside antibiotic are things like gentamicin, tobramycin. You ever had pink eye? I bet you've had that. Plasmamycin, streptomycin, neomycin, which it makes me, I'm not educated in any type of degree of anything to be talking about genetically modified things, but just as a normal person reading this, I have to ask, is that also part of this antibiotic resistant thing that we're seeing? It's because it's a consumption thing that we're experiencing as well.
Now that could very well be the thing.
If you look up why is antibiotic resistance happening, they say it's from overprescription.
Right.
But is it also because this stuff is in our food?
Yeah. Combination. Nothing stands alone.
I don't know.
No. Right. And we've talked about this before. It's not necessarily just one thing that causes something to happen. That one thing can get with something else and can maybe get with something else, and then you've got whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yes. All right. In 1995, we were introduced to GMO soybeans and squash. 1996, GMO corn and cotton. 97, papaya, which I didn't even know.
Me either.
I didn't even know.
I don't eat papaya.
1999, canola.
Oh.
So if you are consuming soybean, squash, corn, papaya, canola, and they're not organic, they're genetically modified.
That's crazy.
So
think about all the things that have corn in it.
Everything has corn in it. Everything. And then I kind of creeped over to, this is when I got on the stint of Could it be these antibiotic resistant, genetically modified things that are in our foods that we're consuming being the cause of what we're experiencing with the resistance,
Right. Yeah.
bacteria and stuff? And I did come across a study, which I also have a link for, that scientists did find that some of the genetically modified material did survive through the human GI tract. And that was a little frightening. I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, because
But
stomach acid alone is very, very strong.
Yes. It's just one of those things that makes you go, yeah. And I'm going to end on that note because the whole GMO conversation is gigantic.
It is gigantic.
Especially nowadays. Because, I mean, honestly, in the 90s when I was growing up, I had no idea I was eating a genetically modified anything.
No. And I don't think in the 90s they actually had to tell you it was genetically modified either.
No.
That we will get into probably in the next episode, because then next week,
the 2000s.
The 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, but wait. Do you want to take next week off? All right. So next week will be a dark week. And when we come back, we will get into the year 2000 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. And we'll be winding up to when Arnie's going to be able to come and talk to us, because this is when a lot of that stuff starts happening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll do that. Dee Dee, try to rest, because apparently you've got a lot of work coming up.
I know.
But remember, next week we're dark. Then the week after that,
Yes.
we're going to come back in with the year 2000. And
Yes, I'll put it on my calendar.
Dee Dee, we will talk to you in the group and see you in a bit.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Love you.
Love you. Mwah.
Cutie.
I've got to find my exit button. Okay.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Sister Sharpens Sister. Remember, next week we're going to be dark, but there are plenty of episodes in our library that you can catch up on. When we come back, we're going to dive into the year of 2000s and find out a little bit more about all of the stuff that's been added to our food. Talk to you then.